Look at this.
Ooh.
My grandfather made that for my mother to ride on the boardwalk in Ocean City, Maryland.
So he made this.
Yeah.
Bicycling was a very social event around the turn of the century. There were a lot of bicycling clubs, there were a lot of innovations in bicycles, and the tandem back then was the woman in front and the man in the back, and it's what they call the steer from the rear. So the man was actually steering the handlebars for the woman in front. They're beautiful bikes, but the side-by-side tandems are very rare. There was a company called Wolf American around the turn of the century that made a social tandem, they call these, where you can sit next to each other.
I want to say that this was probably made in the 30s, and he probably patterned it after one of those others.
The Wolf American side-by-side tandem that was made during the turn of the century is an expensive bike. It's a very collectible bike. This bike that I'm looking at is not that bike. So the fork looks like it's off an English bike. I love how he did the rear hub. Look at that hub, Frank. Maybe his grandfather did this to promote the shop. I started working for a bike shop, and I was basically in the warehouse assembling bikes.
Yeah.
And then I finally moved up to working on the sales floor of the shop. And then I owned my own shop for a number of years.
Wow. It was really pretty cool. It was like two old bike guys talking to each other. I had my own shop for a while, too.
Oh, you did?
I did. I went to school at UVA in Charlottesville, and when I went down there, there were no bicycle shops.
You had a shop while you were going to school?
I did.
Wow.
Went part-time, which is why it took me 10 years to graduate.
I can talk about collecting bikes to a number of people, but it's not often I run into somebody that I can talk to about the bicycle business, the ins and outs. That was exciting to me. So what are you gonna do with this or the girl's bike?
We have to get rid of what's here. I don't have space for it.
I'm starting to see more and more girl collectors.
Really?
When I started
Bikes?
when I started buying old bikes 25, 30 years ago, man, there was hardly any girl collectors. It's a girl's bike. I don't really buy girls' bikes, but it's pre-war. This is the best part of the bike. It's a very rare fender ornament. And the fact that it's got original paint is great, too. And then I noticed underneath the shelving, there's a road racing bike. I'm like, this is gonna be good. Let me see here. Oh, yeah. It's a Raleigh International.
That's my old bike.
That's your bike. So you were riding in style. This was the type of bike that I drooled over when I was a kid. That's a tall bike.
Yeah, it's 23-inch frame.
Built of Reynolds 531 double butted tubing. The butted tubes, you know what that means, Frank?
Butted tubes, will they go together?
No, the tube is actually twice as thick here, and it's drawn thinner.
Okay.
So it reduces the weight.
It's got Campagnolo parts on it. Campagnolo Italian components were the top of the line. There was nothing that touched them. It doesn't have the Alfredo Binda straps.
No.
No.
But you have to understand.
Wow, look at this thing. In 1979, when the movie Breaking Away came out, it was a game changer in my life. There was a young guy in that movie that was completely engulfed in the European cycling world. You know, his heroes were Eddie Merckx, Bernard Hinault. I mean, when I was 14 years old, I knew who those guys were. I was riding around on European racing bikes, and not a lot of people understood that. So what year do you think this is?
Probably 68 or 69,
Yeah, because it's still got the center pole brakes.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the caliper brakes on it. Finding this Raleigh International just brings so much of my childhood back. Now these bikes, they're getting collectible. They were expensive back then, and they're still expensive to this day because the guys that were riding them, they want to ride them again. Is this something you'd sell?
I'm riding a mountain bike these days, so yeah.
How about 300 on this? The women's bike, this, like, 2 bills. I mean, this stuff right here, it's easy for me to gauge, but when you start talking about the tandem,
right,
you
I have
know,
no idea about that.
That's the thing that probably has a lot of sentimental value to it.
When Mike first looked at that side-by-side tandem, my mother used to ride that bike, so I needed to think about it. It was tough.
300 on the Raleigh International and 200 on the Dayton.
Good.
You do that?
Works for me, yeah.
Thank
you.
We decided to put the tandem on the back burner for now, but at least I was able to cut a deal on the Raleigh International and the Dayton girls' bike. I mean, he was passing the torch. This was his bike. And I think one of the reasons he sold me the bike is because I understood the significance of it. There's no way he's gonna sell it to somebody that didn't get it. So it was like the perfect storm. It's like a day-to-day treasure hunt. I'm out there looking for rusty gold. I'm looking for the unusual and impossible. It's
back roads, it's dumpster diving, it's flea markets, it's people's homes.